Welcome back to another Florida basketball instant reaction. Before we get into the video, I want to tell you guys to make sure that you are liked and subscribed to the channel. We have nearly daily content on the channel. We have weekly live streams every Sunday night at 7 o'clock. We will be there this Sunday. Spring practice is about to start. Basketball is heating up, about to get into March Madness. So make sure you guys are subscribed and also like the video. You guys know we probably wouldn't be making this video if this wasn't a big game. Well, it was. Gators go on the road to Tuscaloosa and pull out the 99-94 victory. Only a 5-point victory, but the final 10 minutes, like 8 of the final 10 minutes, the Gators really had this thing closed. Bama hit some threes in like the last minute and a half of this game to make the score closer. I wasn't too worried. Just hit some free throws and you win, which we end up doing.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, I was a little bit worried because we've seen the free throws kind of doom the. I mean, it just doomed the Gators the other night against Georgia. They kind of got a redemption arc there, though. 17 of 22 from the line in this game. And really some clutch free throws late, like Hauk and Condon each hitting both legs of a 1-and-1 down the in the last minute or two is what comes to mind first. Really clutch to stave them off. Like you said, had kind of put the game away, and then they just were hitting shots left and right at the end of the game to sort of stick in it. But huge win for the Gators going on the road to beat a top 10 team for the second time on the road this year, third time overall.
What other top 10 team did we beat? Oh, Tennessee at home. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to talk about Alex Condon here. 7 of 9 from free throws. He went 1 of 5 in the last game, 8 of 9 in the game before that, right? It was something like that against Georgia. The inconsistencies from him on the free throw line is interesting, but hey, he came up when it mattered in that top 10 matchup. Really, this is a win that's going to make Selection Sunday very interesting. I mean, now it seems like that final one spot is probably between Florida and Tennessee, unless both teams lose and Bama finds a way to beat Auburn. Then it's like really close between all three, maybe Michigan State as well. Let's continue talking about the game. I mean, I talked about Condon's free throws, kind of condescended a bit, but 27 points, 10 rebounds. I mean, Alex Condon just had the best game of his career to this point, which is saying a lot because he's been a 2-time SEC Player of the Week. I mean, have a good game against Ole Miss, and you all but have that wrapped up for a third time, working his way to being a first-team All-SEC player. I mean, if it wasn't for him, we probably don't win this game.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, like you said, best game of his career, both in terms of it was his career high in points, but I think also just the biggest single-handed impact he's had on a game this year, which considering the impact he had in the win over Auburn, that's saying a lot, but this was probably an even better performance from him. And you know, we saw the first couple games when he returned from injury was, you know, not, I mean, he played better in the second game after he came back, but was certainly not, you know, completely his former self. I think we saw that completely return in this win tonight. And I mean, we saw it all over the place. I mean, between him and Hauk and Micah Hanglockton and Ruben, I mean, they on the boards 50-35, pretty decisive victory there. Offensive rebounds 16-10. So, you know, just a really impressive performance on the boards. I think we both thought that was a possibility coming into this game.
We'd win the rebounding battle. But
not that dominant a performance, but yeah, just a real testament to how good this team can be when it's at full strength.
Absolutely. I mean, we got to talk about Walter Clayton. It's like, I feel like over the past couple, like the month, Walter Clayton, besides maybe the Auburn game, he's been having higher scoring games. Like he has this 22-point game, but it's kind of inefficient. I mean, if it wasn't for all the offensive rebound the Gators get, we got 16 tonight compared to Alabama's 10. Maybe it'd be a bit more worrisome. I mean, he goes 8 of 20, 2 of 8 from 3. The 6 missed threes was probably the bigger worry. Also missing 2 free throws. A guy who is, I think, statistically like the second best free throw shooter in UF history. Maybe the best 3-point shooter in UF history as well. So you don't like to see him being on a slump really in March. I mean, you got to hope that he steps back up and becomes a player that March remembers, like a Jimmer, a Steph Curry. Who from recent am I forgetting of? Like Caleb Love for UNC. So we got to hope that he kind of steps back up to what we expect from him, because he's still going to be a first-team All-SEC player, I think. And, I mean, yeah, he's near that first-team All-American level, too. So it feels like if you individually watch him, it's not as good as the stat lines would suggest, but we know how good and how efficient he can be.
Yeah, and I'll also say that part of what's allowed Walter Clayton to stay effective, even when he's kind of been not super efficient shooting, like you said, he's doing the other point guard things well,
Yep.
like a lot better than he was last season, certainly, and even earlier this year. 8 assists tonight, five
Yeah, I just
rebounds.
saw
So
that.
made an impact elsewhere on the court, was
Mhm.
facilitating, and still finished as the second leading scorer. So, like, I mean, ultimately, like, it is a bit of a champagne problem that he's still scoring 22 points. But, you'd like to see him be better, especially because he takes a lot of threes that are like objectively bad shots, but you don't really
Mhm.
get mad at it because he hits them a lot. But if he's not
Mhm.
hitting them, you get to the point where it's like, okay, we could be making better use of this possession. But I think you got to trust that with what he's been able to do, he'll figure that out.
Absolutely. So one thing we mentioned on Sunday night, we talked about how Ruben Chinyelu only had like 7 minutes and Micah Hanglotton had 20. Well, it's not a set rotation. It's about how they're playing. You look in this game, Micah Hanglotton played 10 minutes and Ruben Chinyelu played 20. They just flipped the script. Chinyelu had a really good game offensively and defensively. When we went in some scoring droughts, Ruben Chinyelu seemed to be the one that kept giving us those points and bursts. That really helped us get back. I mean, we were never down bad. I think our biggest deficit was 5 points in this game, so we were never really trailing. But early on in the first half, this was a game of runs. I think Florida
Mhm.
went on a 9-2, and then it was like a 10-0 for Bama, and like a 5-0 for Florida, and that first half was really just run by each team. But Chinyelu, really good defensive game as well. 11 rebounds to go with his 9 points. Very solid game from him. If we're getting that from him every single game, then money well spent. We got Ruben Chinyelu over Cliff. Well, Cliff Amorier went to Alabama over Florida, so we went and got Ruben Chinyelu. I think that's working out pretty well for us right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think now that, obviously you've got Ruben, and then with Micah sort of settling in and Condon
Mm-hmm.
being back from injury, it just gives Todd a tremendous amount of flexibility in what he does with his lineups. I mean, we can go small with extra guards, we can, stack with front court guys. And I mean, you saw literally at the end when Condon picked up his fourth foul, they were rotating Chinyelu and Condon in and
Yep.
out just for just possession by possession when Alabama was fouling, just so he wouldn't be in there and pick up a foul. So, like, that's something that if Florida doesn't have the front court depth that they do, you're not really capable of doing. But there's just no position where Florida's not, in the front court, they're 3-4 deep, and in the back court, they're 5 deep, 6 deep. So
Yep.
it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, something we haven't mentioned yet. Sam Alexis was cleared to play for this game. He didn't
Oh
play
yeah.
at all in this game. I
Mhm.
mean, hard to blame him. I mean, when you got Micah Hanglot and Thomas
Yeah.
Houck, who also had 12 points in this game. Yeah, 12 points, uh, 3 rebounds. Did he have a block? No. Yes, he had a block and 1 assist. So when you have Thomas Houck, who could come off the bench this game, we went back to our original starting rotation. When he can come off the bench and do that, you don't really need Sam Alexis as well. Alex Cotton having a stellar game. And Denzel Aberdeen, he only had 7 points, but it was a real big stretch. Florida started pulling away. Aberdeen hits a clutch 3. He also has a nice 2, which is really what pulled this game away from Alabama and for Florida.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he just continues to prove how valuable he is coming off the bench. And I mean, I just think everyone on the team that played, I mean, even like Urban had a couple nice like boards and stuff. Like they just all are
Yep.
contributing right now. It's all kind of coming together pretty nicely. And you can afford to have Clayton not have his best shooting night. You can afford Will Richard to go 0 of 5 from 3. You can afford Condon to pick up 4 fouls late in the game, late in a tight game. Like
Yep.
all these things that Florida just has so much margin for error because of how talented they are across the board.
I know coming into the season, a lot of people, they were like mildly high on Florida. We were like 25th,
Mhm.
23rd, 25th to 20th for most people, where the big question was, okay, we know how good Walter Clayton is. Alex Condon, can he improve on? He was an all SEC freshman team last year. Elijah Martin's good defender. How good can he be offensively? Will Richard, a solid 3D guy. But the big question was the depth. Like, how good is Thomas Houck coming off the bench? How good is Denzel Aberdeen? I mean, we're just now getting Urban Klavjar in the month of February to come off the bench and give us some solid minutes. The big question was, how good were those guys? Can they be decent for Florida to get like that top 4 protected seed? Well, they're better than decent. I mean, we're now talking about Thomas Houck as a guy who, if he really put everything into it, could get drafted in the second rounds. I mean, Denzel Aberdeen, a guy that we were probably talking about as a good depth piece, to now going into next year, I'm good with him starting.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Urban Klavjar, he's adjusting to the game, becoming an excellent 3-point shooter, good feisty defense, as they would say, and good with the ball in his hand, really good passing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Aberdeen, going back to your point about Aberdeen, like, not only am I okay with him starting, I think he has like an all SEC ceiling, honestly.
Me too.
Like, he looks that good. I mean, we'll obviously see how he continues to develop and how he plays in the tournament and stuff. But I mean, just the fact that you have him on top of all the good guards on this team, and we'll see if Urban can emerge here too. I mean, he kind of, for Urban to make an impact, he really has to be shooting and hitting threes. Like, that's kind of his main way to impact when he's on the court. But I mean, we'll see if he can do that. I mean, I think there's a chance that he can get hot and give you 7 points or something in a tournament game. That proves to be pretty valuable.
I think his passing skills are also a pretty big asset to this team.
Yeah.
I mean, he went 0-1 from 3, 1 of 2 from the field. He had a nice layup there. So it's like, it's not the biggest impact, but you get some ball movement from him. You get a couple points from him. And we didn't even mention now Micah coming off the bench, something that no one expected.
Yeah.
So how does this impact Florida going into the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament? Well, winning this game secures Florida the 2 seed in the SEC tournament, which is huge because we won't have to play Auburn if Auburn wins out until the SEC championship game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's pretty. I mean, Florida hasn't had the double bye, and I can't remember how long it's been, but it probably was under Billy Donovan. Oh, they did get it. I couldn't even remember if they got it in 20. Okay, I couldn't even remember if they were good enough to get the double bye that year. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we were like the 3 seed.
Okay.
And then
that sounds about right.
2018 we were also the 3 seed.
Oh, okay.
We lost to Arkansas.
I didn't realize Mike White did it the next year too.
Yeah, he did it back to back. So
gotcha.
But again, we lost early in the SEC tournament in both of those years, so kind of like it feels like we haven't had it in so long.
Yeah.
But secures the 2 seed. Don't have to worry about any tiebreakers now, because even if we lose to Ole Miss, we have the tiebreakers locked up. So that's a nice relief off our shoulders. But what does this impact us for, or how does this impact us for the NCAA tournament? I think is the real question everyone's wondering. Yeah. Well, I think I started talking about it earlier. It's now like 1A, 1B with us in Tennessee. I've seen people say you can go either way. You can look at the high quality of wins Florida has that Tennessee maybe lacks, but you go to the depth of wins, and Tennessee has a stronger depth of resume compared to ours. They have 10 quad 1 wins, and we have 7 now.
I think 7 now for the Gators. They are 10-5, but they would pick up another quad 1 win if they win tonight against Ole Miss, which you'll know as you're watching this whether they did or not.
Tennessee is currently up 1 point with 4:18.5.
Yeah.
So that's a close game. I mean, we play Ole Miss on Saturday at 6:00. So this would be really good for us in 2 ways. One, if Ole Miss wins, they're going to jump up and stay a quad 1 game for us, because I think they're 28th in the net. So if they lose this, they might fall to like 30, which then if they lost to us, they'd probably fall out the quad 1. But not just that. If they win, then like Florida's the 100% that last 1 seed and beat Ole Miss. And unless like Michigan State runs the table and we lose in the first game, we'll probably be that last 1 seed, even if we lose our first game in the SEC tournament. But yeah, Ole Miss just took the lead. I mean, this is a good game here. So if Ole Miss wins, really good for Florida. If they lose, we might have a really interesting selection Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like, Florida, whether you think Florida's on the outside looking in for the 1 seed, like most bracket projections do. Like if you look at bracket matrix, certainly Tennessee holds the 1 seed in most. But I mean, there's nothing to say the committee. What were you gonna say? That
was also before Florida ends up getting a quad 1A win at Alabama.
That's true. That's true. I'm not sure that's enough to like completely swing the tide there without a Tennessee loss, which is kind of what I'm getting at. I think if Tennessee drops this game, which again you'll know as you're watching this whether they did, if that happens, I think Florida's in good shape to get that last 1 seed, assuming they beat Ole Miss. I'll be honest though about the SEC tournament. I think the SEC tournament is completely immaterial to what happens to Florida. I
Yeah.
mean, I think we saw last year. We thought the run Florida went on would help it with this tournament seeding. Didn't have seemingly any impact at all. So I think the committee doesn't care, frankly, about conference tournaments. I
Yeah.
think they've made that pretty clear with how they've operated the last couple of years. So to me, like it's a done deal after Saturday. If Tennessee drops this game, or I guess to South Carolina, that's probably not going to happen, but and Florida beats Ole Miss, I think you can say pretty safely, regardless of what happens in conference tournaments, Florida's going to get that last 1 seed. But if they don't, that's the consequence of a relatively weak non-conference schedule, which I think Florida is pretty okay with how it's all played out, even if they end up on the 2 seed line.
I will say Alabama is currently the last 1 seed on bracket matrix. I have seen a bunch of people have either Bama or Tennessee, so that could really shape up anyway. But the thing with Michigan State, so I was listening to some other podcasts earlier in the day. They were talking about Michigan State's chance to get the last 1 seed. If Michigan State, they play at Michigan, or I think they host Michigan for their last regular season game. If they are able to win out and win the Big Ten championship, it would be like one of the first times ever a power conference team with the resume of Michigan State's won like their last 10 games of the season, or last like 7, 8 games of the season, and wasn't a 1 seed. So it's like unprecedented. That would be why you could have the argument for Michigan State over Florida as that last 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say like that's going to happen to somebody this year, though. I mean, the idea of this Florida team not being a 1 seed is unthinkable in pretty much any other season. So same with Tennessee, same with Alabama, same with Houston, who's probably locked it up at this point, but still.
I saw somebody, Iowa State finished as like the last or the first 2 seed. They had a comparable resume to a team that's a 3 seed, I think, or Texas Tech, I think, who's like a mid to low 3 seed right now. So that's how good this top of the tournament really is. These like top 8 seeds really are some of the best you've ever seen. I was looking at another one, and they had the 8 seeds as Gonzaga, who's a top 10 team in KenPom, UConn, the back-to-back national champions, BYU, who's on like a 6-game win streak. They just won in double overtime at Iowa State. And the other team was UConn, Gonzaga, and BYU. I can't remember who the other 4 seed was. I think it was Illinois. 8 seed, not 4 seed, but 8 seed. So those 4 are the 8 seeds. Those are really good 8 seeds that even as a 1 seed, I'd be a bit worried about.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the top of college basketball is strong. It's the bubble. It starts getting rough when you start looking at the teams that are, 10, 11, 12 seed line.
That's where the separation is.
Yeah, but top of the turn. I mean, the highest level of college basketball this year is as good as it's been in a long, long time.
And I think we have some interesting things developing here in Oklahoma. They're currently up 10 with less than 8 minutes to go against number 15 Missouri. It's not going to happen, but if Oklahoma does secure the win, a 14-bid SEC is still alive.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen because I think Texas is probably on the outside looking in there.
For now.
But does beating Oklahoma change that? I don't know. But a point being, 13 looks, maybe we'll see, but 13 looks like a lock. Which even that, it looked like it was probably going to be 12 just like a couple days ago. So getting 13 of 16 teams in. I mean, I remember I saw the video, maybe you did on Twitter too, of Patrick Young talking about how, the year that the Florida went on the Final Four run, only 3 SEC teams got in the tournament. Only 3 of 14 SEC teams in the tournament. This year, you're looking at 13 bare minimum, probably of 16 and maybe even 14, depending on what Texas can do.
Yeah, the way I see a possible 14. So Arkansas probably is in after that win at Vanderbilt yesterday.
Yeah.
Sorry. Texas picked up the huge win last night at Mississippi State. Quad 1A win. That put them in like that next 4 out. Or first 4 out, sorry. And then you have Oklahoma, who is like on that bubble. If they're able to beat number 15 Missouri, they're on the good side of the bubble, probably.
They kind of already are.
Yeah, well, they're on like I've seen people have them in. I've seen people have them first team out, first team in, or last team in. So
They're in on the
they're really good.
majority of they're in on the
Okay.
majority of bracket matrix brackets. Yeah.
So if they pick up this win against number 15 Missouri, not a lock, but they should feel real good. And if Texas going to, or I think they host Oklahoma.
I believe they play them in Austin. Yeah.
Yeah, it's at Texas. That would make it really close. I mean, and then I know you say the SEC tournament probably doesn't have that much of an impact. Those like first 2 rounds of it do. That's like the bubble teams. They're all playing on those first 2 rounds. They usually end up eliminating and keeping teams alive in the tournament. So if you have Texas, if they're able to get a win, or Oklahoma and Arkansas, I don't know who plays who. If they can like all get a win in round one, obviously the bubble is determined by other teams around you. So if you have like Boise States and Indiana's, Ohio State's continue to win, then you won't get that 14 team SEC. But if a couple of those teams lose, you don't get a lot of brackets or a lot of bid stealers, which I think is going to happen. So that's probably going to be another big reason we don't get 14 in, outside of winning games, obviously. But it's possible. I mean, never say never with this year of college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a strong year for the SEC, as they've probably the strong. I mean, we'll see how they look. You know how we feel about it after the tournament, obviously. But as it looks right now, pretty much far and away the strongest season in SEC history.
Absolutely, and one of the strongest seasons in Gator history. Do you have
Yeah.
any final thoughts on this big win for the Gators at number 7 Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, just I think really nice to the way they've responded to the Georgia loss. I mean, really frustrating how that one played out, but you bounce back, win two big games, one at home, one on the road, and against top 15 teams. And I just think it says a lot about where this team is at right now, keeping the
Mm-hmm.
momentum. Because I mean that's kind of it really does. It's all about who's hot at the right time. And it seems like Florida's managing to stay hot, even weathering that loss. And I'm just really excited to see, hopefully they can close it out against Ole Miss with a win, make a run in Nashville, and then we'll see. Maybe they're a 1 seed in the big dance.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said, way to recover after that Georgia loss, a heartbreaking loss, really. 19-point win against an A&M team that just beat Auburn.
Yeah,
So that's a win that looks even better now. Now, how really hard was Auburn trying? You can ask that question. But resume-wise, it's all the same. So that looks a lot better. Maybe that could be the difference between us being the 1 seed or not. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Make sure you guys do like the video, subscribe to the channel. We will see you next time. And as always, go Gators.